right, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to Facebook Live from the Lantern of Madison. My name is JoAnna, and as some of you probably know, I am actually from Saybrook, but I am filling in for our Sunshine Girl Shannon today. So we're just going to roll with it today, aren't we?
We're totally going to roll with it.
Totally going to roll with it. And I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to bring you our so special guest today, Andrea. And she's the SWAYS coordinator, and she's also a certified dementia practitioner. And so we're very, very proud to have her. And today she's going to cover the 5 stages of acclimation to a new environment for a person with dementia. So we want to welcome you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background first before we get into everything?
I've been with the Lantern of Madison for 6.5 years now. I've been an STNA for 21 years.
Wow, so you know.
I've been
in the trenches. You've been in the trenches.
I've been a certified dementia practitioner for 2 years now, and I've been the SWAYS coordinator for the memory care unit here in Madison for going on 3.5 years.
Wow. So that's some real experience. You came from the ranks and you made your way up the ranks, and so you pretty much know everything that's happening. You have a handle on it because you've gone through it and you have done it.
And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is all based on information that I've gained through experience. This is all research and data that I have gained through a lot of personal experience of working with Alzheimer's and dementia for 21 years.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we are so lucky to have her. So when you go into a new environment, you know, it takes time to get used to that environment.
It does.
Yes. You know, we've all been in new places and new surroundings, and, you know, you're a little uncomfortable. You know, you're not quite sure where you're going. You don't really know anybody.
New house that creaks at night.
New house that creaks, like every little thing. Like, you know, it takes a lot for us to get used to a new environment, okay? So when you're talking with individuals with dementia, it becomes much more difficult. They go through different stages. And a lot of them have similarities to the 5 stages of grief.
Yes.
Yeah, to the 5 stages of grief. So why don't you maybe start us off with maybe like the first stage, like say someone's moving into the Lantern, like what is that first stage that like the family could expect to see?
So with the different stages of grief, which obviously are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, our clients with Alzheimer's and dementia, when they move into a new environment, pretty much go through the same thing. And this has been just a lot of years of just kind of observing and watching and just noticing more and more and more how it is relating so much to that grief process.
Right.
When we're in a stage 3 or 4 of the disease process, and often in the beginning stages of a 5, I think that we're a little bit more aware of our surroundings. So the struggle is a little bit more. When we get into our late stages of 5s and 6s, we're a little bit more malleable, if that makes sense, where it's not, we don't have the same expression of behaviors.
Right.
Not to say that there won't be any, because there will be, but they're going to be out of character type behaviors, and they express them in a bit of a different way.
Okay.
So we'll start with our first stage, which is denial. This stage can be very difficult. It's very difficult for the loved ones who are admitting their family members here. They could be in denial that they had to move. They're in denial that they can't care for themselves anymore. They're in denial that I have a home already. I'm not sure why I have to be here. And they really struggle to understand the why behind the move, because at this stage it's not always easy to really process the why behind the move. And we cannot debate and argue with them. Their reality is their reality, and to debate and argue with them during this time, it only increases their agitation. It only increases that anxiety that they're going through in this new environment.
And not only that, it causes stress within the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so.
It can cause a lot of stress. And again, you know, that caregiver guilt and that we feel after taking care of our loved ones and then not being able to take care of them anymore. Right. It hurts, you know.
Right. So when it comes to the denial part, like I see a lot of it, you'll get like family conflicts with this one, because the person who's always taking care of mom or dad sees it.
Yes.
And maybe you might have a brother or sister who's out of town or doesn't come around as much, and they don't see it.
Right.
So,
and that's actually through all of the stages,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. During this stage of denial, this stage is difficult for families because you're doing what's best for your loved
Right.
one.
Right.
You know they can't be safe at home anymore, and in your heart of hearts, you know you're making the right decision, but they pull on your heartstrings because they do have a home,
Right.
and
Right.
how could you take me from my home? Often when you bring them in and you set up their apartment, they're very accepting in that moment, especially when you're there with them. It makes it more comforting. It's a little bit easier of a transition. But then when you leave, often they will start to increase their confusion and sometimes their agitation. And again, if you try to correct their reality, it only increases that agitation. So we as care staff, we try to go with the flow with them. We have to go with the flow during this stage and go along with where they are in the moment. We have to meet them where they are in the moment, and we have to meet them in their reality, because their perception of that reality isn't going to change.
Right.
Because we tell them it should change. So as caregivers, we have to become those advocates for the clients. We have to make them feel like somebody's on their side, validate that they have every right to feel the way that they feel. And so, yeah, that's denial.
That's denial. So when it comes to, like, when we were talking about when you bring them in, it's real important not to go and buy all new stuff. Don't worry what their stuff looks like, because it's their stuff, and that's what's going to make them feel comfortable, right?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
one of the really cool things about us is that their apartments are empty when they move in. It's like anybody moving into a new apartment. And for anybody who has done this before, we spend a lot of time making it our own. And we make it our own with our things that have a lot of meaning to us. So for instance, if I have a favorite recliner, and it doesn't matter if it's got holes and it's run down, but it's got my whole body imprints in it, and it's the one thing that's super familiar and comfortable to me, bring that recliner.
Yeah,
I know it doesn't look
worry.
good. It's okay. We don't care if the recliner is shabby looking. What we care about is the familiarity of that
Right.
item, that comfort of that item that it gives to that individual who's trying to get through this environmental change. You know, their favorite coffee mug. I know that the Lantern provides coffee mugs. We do. But if they have their favorite coffee mug that they drink coffee out of every single morning, that's something that you want to make sure you bring. Because these things that are familiar to them are going to make that space feel a lot more like home. And maybe that environmental change won't be so difficult.
Right. And that goes, and the opposite is true also. Don't bring so much stuff.
Right.
That they're super overwhelmed and
Oversensory overload. Yes, there's so much stuff that I don't even know where to begin. And often, you know, we want to make our home
and you want to make them happy.
And
you want to let them be happy. So, can I bring this? Can I bring that? Can I bring this? Can I bring that?
Yes. And that's very difficult. So you kind of have to, you know, weigh what you're going to bring and what you're not going to bring. But when you buy all new stuff,
yeah, don't do that.
It's not familiar to them. They don't know this new shower curtain and these new floor mats and that new area rug, and I've never seen that chair before. This is not my space.
Yeah, those aren't my slippers. Those aren't my clothes. Those aren't.
Absolutely.
Because you're worried about what people are going to think when you bring the stuff in.
Right, and we don't care.
And
we just want your loved one to really enjoy the environment and feel comfortable within it.
Yeah.
So now,
this is a tough one, gang.
This one's anger.
Yeah.
Anger is never easy. So now we're starting to realize that we're not going home right away, and we start to exhibit these signs of increased anger or agitation. They will pack up their belongings and they will wait by the door for somebody to come pick them up.
Right.
They will accuse their family members and loved ones of abandoning them, and we know better, but they don't maybe understand that, because again, they don't understand necessarily the why behind the move. They'll refuse to stay another minute. Often this is where we have to play it out for them and sit by the door with them and encourage them to come and eat while they wait for that ride. while caring for them. Again, we have to be on their side. We have to validate their anger. We have to let them know that they have every right to be angry, because anybody in this world that gets angry for any reason feels like they have that right to be angry.
Right.
And telling somebody that they don't need to be angry, that it doesn't matter, it's going to be fine, only is going to increase that agitation. So helping to validate that anger is really helpful for them, because then they feel like, well, somebody understands.
Yeah.
There is somebody on my side. There is somebody that is getting this and how I'm feeling. So that's really important. And it's really important to let them know that they are not alone in their feelings.
And then when it comes to anger, there's some trigger words that you probably don't want to use.
Like home.
Like the word home.
We're going to say that a lot. Home is a big trigger word. When you put your purse on, your coat on, and you say, I'm going home, well, they're going to want to come with you. They want to go too.
Yeah, they want to go too.
So, yes, that will always be the trigger word.
Yeah. And then I was saying, like, what's the best way to leave? Like, should you just say, oh, I'm going to the bathroom and I'll be back, and then leave? I mean, what?
And
because you kind of have to sneak out of there sometimes.
And unfortunately, you don't always know the level of cognition and memory that they may be able to trace back. So if you say, I'm just going to go to the bathroom, and you leave and you never come back, I might be standing by the door in 5 minutes waiting for you to come back from the bathroom, because 5 minutes may not be, where my memory point cuts off at. So a lot of times I will help families with, hey, I got to go run errands for the house. I'll be back later. I have to go to work, but I'll be back and see you when I'm done working. I have to go get groceries for the house. I have to go drop my car off to be fixed. Try to keep it as realistic as possible, but at the same time, make it sort of a longer term of being away instead of that real short term, because we never know exactly how short term that memory might be.
Right. And I guess you probably shouldn't lie, because then they're going to realize that you're lying, and then they're always going to think that you're lying.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes, yes. So try to keep it as real as you possibly can.
So now this next one, boy, I tell you, they're really something, these guys.
They are. They're difficult.
This third stage is bargaining and manipulation, and this is a big one.
I'll say that they are very, very good at the manipulation and the bargaining. They come up with some pretty good doozies when it comes to trying to get you to take them home. This stage is probably one of the most difficult for families, because this is when we start verbalizing to our families how uncomfortable we are and how unhappy we are. They will often do whatever it takes to not have to live in this facility. They will bargain. They'll threaten to call the police and tell them that we're holding them hostage. They'll accuse family members, and I'm sure some of you guys have heard it. You have no right to take my house. It's your fault I have to live here. What right do you have to sell my house? Who do you think you are? No one would treat their mother like this.
Yeah,
you don't love me anymore.
The things that get you right in the...
They are literally targeting your heart. Because if they can target your heart and they can make you feel that bad about them having to be here, then they know you will do everything that you can to not have to have them stay here. Even though you know in your heart of hearts it was the right thing to do to bring them into a facility where they could be safe. It's not always easy. It's right up here. It doesn't always compute to your heart.
Right.
So it's always kind of harder during this stage when they're being very accusatory and they're being very manipulative.
And this goes for, like, they'll say, they're stealing from me, they're not feeding me, they're...
Yes, so that you'll pick them up and you'll take them out and you'll come get them and you'll take them. I've even had family members come and take clients around to other facilities when they mentioned how unhappy they were here. Unfortunately, when they went through all these environmental changes and saw all these different places and she came back, the increased anger was astounding. She was very confused, very agitated, very fixated on money. And so it became very difficult for her to acclimate. So it took even longer, and it extended that acclimation period even longer until, we stopped taking her out constantly.
Yeah. Now, and this is another one of those areas where if the whole family's not on board, this particular thing can cause the biggest conflicts in family, because you'll have one part of the family that knows mom or dad and know that there's an issue or problem, and then the other part of the family that doesn't really know so much, and then mom's telling them, she's stealing money from me. She's taking all my money.
Not only that, is often we are in denial ourselves that our loved one has dementia.
Right.
And when we have short snippets, when we have half an hour conversations, when I'm in my stage 3s and 4s, and sometimes even in my beginnings of stage 5s, I'm very good at faking it till I make it. And I can have a really good, meaningful conversation with you without you really picking up those telltale signs that something's not quite right.
And you almost believe them.
But when you spend a couple hours with that individual, you may not, you will start to see those memory deficits and those word finding when we can't remember words and we're trying to communicate. So when we have that 15-minute, 20-minute conversation on the phone with our loved one who lives in another state, they seem fine.
Yeah.
You know, they seem okay. They can have a conversation. There's nothing wrong with them. They're good. But in reality, when you're actually here and you're with them for a long period of time, you're seeing the pattern. You're seeing a lot more of those deficits that are happening. So that one family member that might be here every day, spending time with that loved one, has a good grasp and understanding on what's going on. Whereas a family member that might live out of town might not see the same behaviors and patterns that family member. So then there's that conflict.
Yeah, over the years I have seen a lot of family conflicts and a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of emotions that don't need to really happen, but they do because that whole communication has fallen apart.
Absolutely.
And then you have mom calling one person, working against the other person. You know what I mean? So you have to, as whoever takes charge, there's always a family member that takes charge.
Absolutely, right.
And that family member has to articulate and show examples and really pull the family together and say, this is for my mom and dad's safety, because I know you're not seeing it, but you gotta trust me. There's really an issue and a problem.
And I would definitely suggest that every family member who is in relationship with the loved one and will be communicating with them a lot, do their due diligence and really research and understand Alzheimer's and dementia. I teach classes, I do community speaking presentations, a lot at the senior centers when we're not in a pandemic. And I've even done educational seminars here for families, because there's a lot we don't know about Alzheimer's and dementia. There is such a vast world of things that people don't really know, and they're very surprised when they find things out, and it's difficult. It really is.
Yeah, so there's like 88 different types of dementia.
Yeah, it's
who knew? I just thought there was one. I didn't know.
Right.
You know.
So depending on your loved one's type of dementia and depending on the stage of their dementia, learning as much as you can about it is going to definitely benefit you and your family, especially trying to get through this whole acclimation period.
Yeah, because when I first started off, I never thought that there was 88 types of dementia. I thought dementia was Alzheimer's was dementia, and it was just one thing. I didn't think
and you'd be surprised how many people are the same, that Alzheimer's is just, dementia is Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's is dementia.
Yeah.
Well, yes, everybody who has Alzheimer's has dementia, but not everybody who has dementia has Alzheimer's.
Or it's going to turn into Alzheimer's.
Right.
Right.
Because there's lots of different forms of dementia.
And dementia happens when the dementia progresses. Is that just the brain continuing to shrink?
It depends on the form of dementia.
Oh, okay.
So every form of dementia has a different pathology on how it changes the brain. So it really just depends. There are some dementias that only hit certain lobes of the brain. Alzheimer's disease hits your cerebral cortex, whereas FTD or frontal temporal lobe dementia just really focuses on that frontal and temporal lobes. So it really just depends, honestly, about which dementia that we're dealing with here. So do your research.
So do some just hit the right side, some hit the left side, some
it just really depends.
It just really depends
on the dementia. There's all different kinds.
Well, that's wonderful. Okay, so now we're getting to this. Now
we're at the fourth stage,
which is it's sad. The fourth stage is hard because
nobody wants to see their loved one depressed.
Yeah.
It's sad. This stage is where they're starting to feel like they've been abandoned or forgotten by their loved ones. And that is not to say that their loved ones haven't visited them every single day and spent time with them. It's just unfortunately they may have forgotten that they had that visit. So it's very, it really pulls on your heartstrings when they call you and they're crying and they're sad. When they keep telling you that they don't want to do activities, they don't want to go sit with those other people. We start to, kind of pull ourselves away and withdraw from social situations. I'm hesitant to participate in these activities because I don't really know these people. This environment's kind of different to me. And it's sad and it's depressing because I'm trying to understand and accept that I'm not going. I'm not going home. I'm not leaving. So now I am depressed and sad. And so this can be really difficult for the families because, again, nobody wants to see their loved one unhappy. So there's a lot of different things that we can do, a lot of counseling, obviously. We do offer counseling through our geropsych services, but sometimes, during this acclimation process, and during this depression stage, it might be beneficial to talk to the geropsychology or the doctor and find out if maybe an antidepressant to be used just in a therapeutic way during this time, just to kind of help them therapeutically through this. And then when we get to the next stage of acceptance, we can start tapering off of that medication. And then we don't, because obviously these medications aren't good for anybody, not you, me.
It's
elderly
just
children.
a little bit of a stepping stone.
It's just a little bit of a
boost.
little therapy to help us along the way until we can get to that next stage and we can start to feel good.
Okay. And when it comes to some of these stages, some of the families go through them also. Some of the families will go through like a stage of anger and a stage of denial and a stage of
we all go
depression.
through it, I think, actually. Yeah.
So that's important to know too, that your own feelings are going to come to the surface also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
especially like that guilt and am I doing the right thing? And you just have to know in your heart of heart, I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm doing the right thing.
Yep.
And hold true to that.
So we try to engage them in as much activities as we can. We try to get that socialization aspect out, that human interaction that we all as human beings need. Even if it's just like one-on-one.
Right.
I'm just going to go in the room and I'm just going to sit and have a good deep conversation with you and just let you, let off some steam and just talk to me. I would suggest, sorry to interrupt you, but okay. I would suggest that if you're a family member and you do come in to visit with your loved one and they're going through any of these stages and they're in the middle of doing an activity because we actually got them to do an activity, I would ask you to join them. Instead of I'm going to take my mom and we're going to go in her room and we're going to sit and have a visit. That's great. We want you to do that, but we also want you to be a part of the activities because this lets that client know that this is all okay. I have my loved one here with me. We're doing this together. It's fun. It's fun. It takes a team to do it. I have support. I have guidance, and my family member is letting me know that it's okay to be a part of this. So that's very helpful.
What I was going to say was when we first bring our clients in, there's an extensively long questionnaire.
Yes.
That the families fill out, and a lot of the families aren't. Why do I have to fill out? Why I don't understand why I got to fill. There's a point and a purpose to this very long questionnaire. So
yes,
maybe
and we're going to get to that after we talk about that stage of acceptance.
Good.
Acceptance. This is the golden ticket. This is the yay moment. This is when we start to see that they're becoming adapted to their environment. Often in the other stages, they'll say, "Hey, come to this room. You want to see this room, or come to this area over here and see where we do this." When we get to this acceptance stage, things start to change and we start to have ownership. Come see my room.
Nice.
Come look at my bathroom. I want to show you something. Come look at the prizes I won in the bingo that I was playing today. This ownership of me. This is mine. I own it. This is when we really start to know that acceptance is happening. They'll start to refer to their suite as their home, and they might even start rearranging some of the things in their suite to accommodate them, to make it more their own. And so instead of I'm packing up all my stuff and I have to leave, now it's the opposite. now I need to put this right here because I need to see this right here and it looks good and that's mine and I like the way it looks right there. And often they become very particular about where things should be. We start to become accustomed to a routine, time for meals, time to rise, time to go to bed, time to do activities. We start to make friends with other clients. Sometimes we make friends with more than one person, but often we latch onto that one friend and become very good friends. And then, of course, we start trusting the staff. We start trusting our loved ones. We start trusting other clients that are around us. We start building those relationships, and trust goes a long way. And so we need to build that relationship of trust because it really helps in caregiving. If they trust us, they'll allow us to take care of them and help them. So
those are the basic five. That's okay. So those are the basic 5 stages, but also this 5th stage sometimes is hard for the family because sometimes then they don't want to leave.
Right.
They don't want to go home for Thanksgiving.
They don't.
They want to stay here.
So now we've become so acclimated to our environment that it's so comfortable that we don't want to go anywhere else. And sometimes it causes anxiety for us to actually leave the facility and go out into the general population. You imagine all that sensory overload just from too much furniture and knickknacks in your room. Imagine a world that is just spinning so fast out and you're trying to catch up with it. And it's just a lot to process, and often it is a lot of just sensory overload. And you know, we try to, our Swayus environment is a lot of, you know, green grass, blue sky ceiling, plants,
beautiful.
trees. It's very tranquil, the waterfalls. So that environment helps to minimize a lot of those unwanted emotions like stress and anxiety and depression. And when we leave that environment, often it increases those unwanted emotions. So you'll see sometimes where clients will literally stop at those double doors and they will not move forward. They don't want to go. And so again, you know, it's hard for the families because, well, why wouldn't you want to come home with us? You know, this, you know, and it's hard. So, you know, when the pandemic is over and we can have people in our buildings again, this is where we suggest you bring the party to them. My grandfather lives here at the Lantern of Madison, and every year we have our Christmas party right here in our theater. Hopefully we can this year. Because it's just so much easier to bring everybody to him because this is where he's comfortable. If he gets tired, he can get up and he can go to bed if he wants, and we'll keep going. But it's where he's comfortable and his friends are around, and it's just better sometimes to just bring the party to them. And we definitely have the space to do it.
We have several spaces available, and they become very, very close to their caregivers. So, you know, a lot of times they just want their caregiver with them. No, daughter, don't take me to the bath. My caregiver, you know. My Susan will take me, or and that has a lot to do with them not wanting to go home sometimes. Like, who's going to take me to the bathroom? And they just become so comfortable here. It becomes like their home.
Right.
And that's the ultimate what you want to happen.
That is our ultimate goal.
But
You're absolutely right.
At the same time, it's hard sometimes for the families to see that.
This is a hard transition.
It's a hard transition.
And you know, as they go through these stages of acclimation, it can be difficult sometimes to manage behaviors for families when they're having these family visits. It can make family visits unpleasant, especially when they're sitting there accusing you of not loving you enough. And how could you do this to me? But I really firmly believe that with the help of a care team and with the help of the families, that we can manage behaviors and that we can make visits more pleasant. The more information, this is that we're going back to that long 81 questions questionnaire. The more information we have about an individual, the more we can interact with them, the more that we can engage with them. Where did they work? What did they do for a living? You know, what comforts them? What agitates them? What will they not tolerate? The best one is, what is the names of all their loved ones?
Right.
I can't say your older daughter's coming to visit later and they say,
which one?
What older daughter? What's her name? I don't know. Well, that doesn't work. And trying to keep that reality, you know, as much as possible, and being able to say your daughter Tina will be here later. You know, names go a long way. He, she, it, them, they. They don't always, with Alzheimer's and dementia, they're not always able to articulate what he, she, them, they, it are. Who are these people? Who is they? Who is them that are coming? You know, but when you say a name and your name specific, it allows them to process it a whole lot better, and it's more recognizable.
Right.
I know my daughter's name is Tina. I don't know who she or he or it or they are.
Yeah.
So knowing family names are very, very important. It really helps us. In my experience, the acclimation process can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months.
Yeah.
It really depends on the families, how much they take their loved one in and out of the building, how much they allow us to have that time with them to acclimate them to their new environment and spend that time with them and get that trusting relationship built with their loved one. That's really important. But all of these stages that we just talked about, they're difficult. They're not easy.
Yeah.
But they're normal.
Yeah.
They're
really
so very
important.
normal.
Yeah.
And so when you don't realize that this is something that always happens, it becomes difficult to accept it as a loved one, that your loved one is actually unhappy. So we have to help our family members as well as the clients going through these stages, because it's difficult. It's difficult to navigate a conversation sometimes with somebody who has Alzheimer's and dementia, especially when they're being really accusatory. It's difficult to find out, you know, what should I say and what should I not say? What will agitate and what will comfort? So for me, as a care team member, I've often met with families. I've sat and done visits with the family members to help them navigate that communication and that conversation, so that they can have a good, meaningful, loving, pleasant visit. Unfortunately, you know, it's important to remember that the client may not remember the conversation.
Right.
They may not remember what they said, but the family member is going to go home walking away with those words imprinted in their mind and their heart, and it's going to be very difficult for you to accept it. And so any way that we can make your visits more pleasant, make them easier, help you through them, navigate them, help with that reality and perception, is going to go a long way in taking away a lot of that stress and a lot of that guilt from the family members who are experiencing that. So that's really important. We always have to make sure the family members know that they're doing the right thing, that they did the right thing, that they're doing a good job. It's hard to feel like you're doing the wrong thing when you don't see somebody happy with the decision you made.
Right.
So it's always hard and it's always a struggle to understand the behaviors and the emotions that they go through. But I feel like if we work as a team and we educate and we educate and we educate and we educate, that we can make this a lot easier for everybody. And I think it could be a lot more of an easier process if we really make sure that we are spending enough time with the families and spending enough time with the clients and as a care team. Being a care team is very important.
Yeah. What kind of training does the care team get?
All of the staff get a 4-hour class on Alzheimer's and dementia. We talk about the brain, how Alzheimer's and dementia affects the brain, different types of dementia, how they affect that person, behaviors that are associated with the different dementias, understanding that a need is a need. A need is a need until it is met. And so we have to understand and try to figure out what that need is, even when the client can't tell us, cannot communicate what the need is. So learning body language, understanding how to pull context words out of a sentence that may not make a whole lot of sense when they're trying to communicate. This is all part of their education. On top of that, they get 4 hours of education on their first day of orientation. And then on top of that, they get 4 hours of in-services throughout the year on Alzheimer's and dementia and different things that are associated with them, from behaviors to environment to activities and caregiving. So it's a lot. They get constant, and I just go down sometimes and just start quizzing them.
Yeah, and if you ever saw anything, you would always say, you know what? Well, maybe try doing it this way.
Yeah, our motto often is, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all.
Right.
Because again, every individual is different. We all came from different backgrounds, different family dynamics, different lifestyles, and so what may work on me may not work on JoAnna, or
Right.
what doesn't work on JoAnna may work on me, and it might be something that I can process and understand, whereas, you know, she may not. So we have to try everything. And so that's something that I teach my caregivers. They all know that they have to have a voice. They have to be able to communicate with me, with their nurse, with each other as to what's going on. I always tell them, if something works, shout it out and shout it out loud, because
Yeah.
we all need to know
Yeah.
what works. And it goes both ways. If
What
something
doesn't
doesn't work, shout it out and shout it out loud, so that we all know what not to do to cause that person further unwanted emotions, such as anger, depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
So
So now when they're starting, now sometimes as they get further down, they start having like outbursts, and some difficult.
So yeah, we talked in the beginning a little
Yeah.
bit about how when we get to them late stages of 5s and 6s, how they become a little bit more malleable, but they still have out of character behaviors or dysfunctional behaviors that we're not used to seeing. So some of those may include, but are not limited to, poor food intake. My gosh, my mom's not eating.
Yeah.
I can see she's losing weight. What's happening? What's going on? And it's really that at this point in time, they're just kind of grazing, and they
Right.
eat a little bit here and a little bit there, but they're so focused on trying to acclimate to this new environment and these new surroundings that they don't have the focus and attention to sit down and eat a whole meal.
Right.
So we may see some poor food intake. We may see a little bit of a weight loss, but normally when we get to acceptance, we start putting those pounds back on, because
Yeah.
now we're eating really good. Incontinence, whereas we may not have been incontinent before, now we're having some incontinence issues. Well, because I don't know where the bathroom is, and this is new to me, and
Right.
I'm not really sure what I do, and I'm kind of embarrassed. What do I do?
Yeah.
You know, so incontinence sometimes happens. Yelling out and screaming. Sleep disturbances. Sometimes we don't sleep at all. Sometimes we sleep too much and we're napping all the time and we want to lay in bed all the time. Often we see that during the depression stage. Struggling with their activities of daily living, such as dressing and grooming and giving themselves a shower. Sometimes, you know, we have increased confusion during some of our acclimation process, so we struggle with some of those ADLs. And of course, that's where, you know, our care staff would step in to support, guide, and assist them. Sometimes we have memory conflicts, whereas usually we're pretty sharp.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, we're just slightly off, because we're really trying to process everything that's happening in my world. And so I kind of have some increased confusion during that time. Wandering, pacing, repetitive body movements, and anxiety, undressing in public. Might sound strange, but when you don't know your environment and you don't know where you are, and you feel like, okay, well, this is where I should be and I'm comfortable, and this is what they keep saying, like, this is my home, well, then I'm just going to get undressed here and put my pajamas on.
Yeah.
You know, why would you differentiate if I keep telling you this is your home from your apartment versus the common area?
Right.
So until we really can build that routine with them and get them to understand that routine, they don't always understand the most appropriate places to dress and undress. Sometimes it's incoherent babbling. Resistance to care is a big one. That's probably our biggest struggle, is
Yeah.
resistance to care.
Yeah.
I don't know you. Why are you, you know, dressing me or undressing me, or trying to get me to take a shower or even go to the bathroom? Sometimes these are pretty hard. Resistance to care, you know, building that trusting relationship with that caregiver. That's why it's really important that our caregivers are as consistent as possible in our dementia unit,
Yeah.
which is, I feel we've done a pretty good job with.
Now, you always teach like your girls or your staff like the 4 questions.
Yes, the 4 questions. When somebody's having a behavior or an expression and they're unable to communicate it, possibly because of the disease process, I always teach the staff that there are 4 questions that we can always ask that we will normally get a yes or no answer back. I'm not going to, as a dementia or Alzheimer's individual, I may not be able to volunteer the information or communicate it myself, but when I hear that question, I can answer appropriately. And those 4 questions are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you have to go to the bathroom? And are you in pain? because 9 times out of 10, it's usually one of those
One
four.
of those four things.
You know, again, a need is a need until it is met. So if I have to go to the bathroom but I can't express it, I'm going to show you some form or way that I have to go to the bathroom. And it may be going from door to door and jiggling doorknobs. It may be wandering into every other client's room that I can find because I'm in search of a bathroom. And I might not even compute that it's a bathroom I need. I just know that I need something. And I'm trying to find it. You know, so that's where a lot of that wandering and that pacing comes into place.
And that goes for pain too, like
absolutely pain. Sometimes I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, I have bad knee pain, I need a Tylenol. But I might be showing you anger or aggression because I'm in pain and I don't know how to express that I'm in pain. So asking them in pain, if they're in pain, they most likely will be able to tell you yes or no. But asking them where the pain is might not compute, because I know that I know somewhere on my body it hurts, but I can't necessarily express or process exactly where that is on my body. I just know that I hurt.
Yeah.
And so I can answer appropriately.
Right. Yeah. And that's really important, and that's part of the lantern training.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times they'll come in and they have never even worked with anybody with dementia or Alzheimer's, and that's where all of that training comes together.
Very important.
Very, very, very important. And I think that makes us a little bit different than a lot of other places, because we will take that time and do that training. And
I think it really sets us apart and makes us a completely unique entity in the amount of education that our staff receives on Alzheimer's and dementia alone.
right,
Just on that.
just on that one topic.
Just on that one topic, because we have monthly in-services throughout the whole year, and 4 of those alone out of 12 are on Alzheimer's and
Right.
dementia.
Right.
So I worked in a lot of places in my 21 years, and I never got this type of education.
Right.
So I think that really does set us apart, and I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Because they do really have a good grasp, and our care staff, you know, when they take this class and they have all this education, become a really good resource for family members, because now family members can actually come and ask good questions and get good answers.
So, well, that was wonderful. That is some really great information. Of course, if you've missed any or part of this, you can catch us up on Facebook Live. Please join me tomorrow at the Lantern of Saybrook Facebook, where I'm going to be coming to you from Vector Security in Geneva. Yeah.
Ooh.
And Josh is going to be talking about the new wellness plan that's being offered for seniors, and along with other products and services to benefit our community. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I would like to give a good shout out to our girl, Sunshine Shannon.
Sunshine Shannon, we
Sorry
miss
she
you.
couldn't be here with us today. But we miss you and we love you.
We miss you and love you. There is no sunshine when you're gone.
There's no sunshine when
There's
you're
no
gone.
sunshine when you're gone. So until tomorrow, I wish you a great afternoon.
Thank you so much, JoAnna, for helping us out today.
I was so pleased to come, and you were fantastic.
Thank you.
So much information.
Thank you.
And we wish you great memories and a great afternoon.
Thank you. We'll
Bye,
talk about
everybody.
guilt.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a big discussion on guilt.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a later session.
In a
Thank
later
you
session.
so much, everyone. Have
Thank
a great
you.
day.
Until we shut you off. Oh, finger.